Roger once again, Mud Fossil University, on the search for truth. And to that end, I don't want to distract anyone from their belief systems. I have no no desire to change anything that you think whatsoever. I am presenting things that I have seen, and I just am presenting them. That's all. If you don't have any belief that they're true, that's fine. That is not an issue for me. Let me bring this down to where it's seen. I keep getting these Facebook things. I don't know how to turn them off. So, all right. Now this is the Gnostic library, and I'm told, no, you can't read the Gnostic text. You can't read this. You got to read this version of that. You can't. Don't look at this. Well, I look at everything, and then I make my own decisions. And that's up to you to do the same. And close your eyes right now and walk away. No problem for me. But what I do want to show you is, and I'm not trying to hide my belief system from anyone. I believe now from my research, not just from being, oh, I hope this is going to be true, that Jesus is exactly what he said he was, the Son of God born in space and the Son of Man born on earth. He came from space and fed the people in the desert. It was his body that literally rained down on the earth. It's a fact. That appears to be, I mean, I say it's a fact. Everything that indicates in history was written said the dragon and the lady, she gave birth on the moon, and we'll see this in a minute. I found the desert, the dragon in the desert. I found a leviathan in the desert. I found all of the things that it said. I found the giants. I have them DNA tested. There's no question. The earth is covered with life that is now dead. And it always reported about the flood and what would happen. And now I've looked into the ancient Greek mythology, which appears to have a very strong resonance of truth to me, which is Deucalion and Pyrrha, his wife, appear to be Noah and Noah's wife. And they repopulated the earth by throwing the stones over their shoulders. It says this in the mythology. And I have come to not discount that mythology. Sounds crazy. Oh, Poseidon owned Atlantis, and Atlantis owned a certain area, and he was able to call up floods and do all kinds of things that we just think are silly. Well, that's not what I'm finding. Now, you could go on your own way and think anything you want to think. But I'm finding that the Gorgons could turn people to stone. The Atlanteans existed just what Herodotus said they did. And even in Herodotus' time, which only goes back to like 450 BC in that area, he was called the father of all liars. And he was the father of all history. So he was attacked back then. And he was closest to the source we are ever going to get. And his stories are very, very detailed and really incredible. As a matter of fact, you should read it. Herodotus, he's got like 3 volumes, I believe. That it's extensive. But it was the stories collected at the time by a very, very, very credible source. And then there was Solon, who passed all his information down, and he studied with the priests in Egypt, the high priests in Egypt, that were descendants of Atlantis. That's where the Egyptian dynasty, the long-headed people, came from. They came out of Atlantis and populated the whole world after it collapsed. And I've shown all this, and Plato talks about it, and it's all been written in history and just all been ignored and laughed at instead of studied. And I studied it. So if you study it, you're going to find out the exact same thing that I found out. And it all seems to play out as true. As incredible as it sounds, as insane as it sounds, it appears to be true. And if you can discount the dragon in the desert, and the giants, and the Leviathan, and the ancient texts and accounts, all I can say is that's fine. Then go about your business, because that's what looking for truth is all about. If you already think you found your truth and you're satisfied, God bless you. I'm sure He would. Now, these are from a Gnostic text again, something that's probably not going to be accepted by some. But these were the living words that came from Jesus and were recorded by Judas Didymus Thomas, who was Doubting Thomas. And he recorded them as Jesus spoke. Jesus was only here 3.5 years. And just about everything he wrote was very well recorded. It appears to me now. And I find it in multiple sources, not just one. This guy wrote it and that's it, case closed. No, it shows up here and it shows up in another verse over there and another one over here and another text over there and in the Quran, and it's all over the place. So, what did he say? What did Jesus say? He said, whoever finds the interpretations of these sayings will not experience death. That's a pretty good incentive for me. Now, number 2, what did he say next? Jesus said, let him who seeks continue seeking until he finds. All right? Don't just close your eyes. Oh, I got it. Everything's fine. Well, maybe you found it. Good for you. But I don't think I found everything that I want to find yet because I can't explain everything that I see yet. And if you can, and you have explanations that fit your belief system, that's your belief system. Now, let him continue seeking until he finds. When he finds, he will be troubled, and that is a fact. When he becomes troubled, he will be astonished, and that is a fact. And he will rule over the all. Well, I don't know about that, but if you do find what you find, then maybe you will rule over the all. I certainly don't want to myself. Now, Jesus said, if those who lead you to say you see the kingdom is in the skies, the birds are ahead of you, and he goes on and on and on and on and on. And he goes on that you're supposed to be just like a child. You're supposed to, these sayings are absolutely amazing. He was a very interesting guy. Jesus said, I have cast fire upon the world, and see, I am guarding it until it blazes. And it's on fire now, I can tell you that. Jesus said, this heaven will pass away, and the one above it will pass away. The dead are not alive, and the living will not die. In the days when you consumed what is dead, you made it what is alive. When you come to dwell in the light, what will you do? On the day when you were one, you became two. But when you became two, what will you do? Very, very, very interesting. Okay, Revelations 12, the woman and the dragon. A great sign appeared in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun, with the moon under her feet, and a crown of 12 stars on her head, 12 titans. She was pregnant and cried out in pain as she was about to give birth. Standing on the moon, pregnant, going to give birth. Well, what happens before you give birth? You break the waters of they call it breaking the waters. And she had these amniotic fluids, which is flooded the earth, is what I'm saying, is how the water came from heavens to flood the earth in the beginning. Now, giving birth in space is not like a normal birth. I'm sure it doesn't start, real quick, and it's, it's for a woman giving birth. I don't think it's all that quick, but in space, I'm sure we're talking a long time. So let's say the water came. Now, so she was about to give birth. Boom, the waters break. Then another sign appeared in the heaven, an enormous red dragon with 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns on its heads, which I have found in the Moroccan desert, and there are snakes' heads on that thing, on top of the dragon's head. Irwell found those, Irwell Peak, a friend of mine, and he posted that, and there is no question they're there. And they actually posted that from space. The astronauts saw it and said, "Ooh, this is interesting." That's very interesting. But they couldn't see the dragon, apparently. Now, listen to this. That dragon, its tail swept a third of the stars out of the sky and flung them to the earth. You know who those were? Those are the 200 bad angels. There was 600 of them started. Those were the watchers. 200 of them got thrown to earth. And the Pope, last, I don't know, 15 years ago, started talking about this. Now, that same dragon who flung those 200 to earth, the bad angels, now, it sort of relates in that, because they were thrown to earth. Now, he stood there. The dragon stood in front of the woman who was about to give birth so that he might devour her child the moment he was born. Now, there's another story about people, about, it was Uranus, or it was one of the, Uranus or Cronus, I think it was Uranus, was devouring his own children. Anyway, she was going to devour the child the moment it was born. She gave birth to a son, a male child, who will rule all the nations with an iron scepter. And that sounds like he's getting ready. And it does talk about that the only way they can rule is with supreme 100% authority. But they have to be a moral leader, and that's what we've lost, is the morality. So there is no way to lead negotiating morality. You cannot negotiate morality, and you can't destroy the earth for profit, and you can't tread on everyone's lives for profit. And that's what's happened. Anyway, her child was snatched up to God and to his throne. Now, that's what happened to Zeus. Hey, Zeus. I'm just talking. I have no clue whether I'm talking right or not. I'm just saying these things sort of fell into place to me. The woman fled into the wilderness to a place prepared for her by God, where she might be taken care of for 1,260 days. Now, whatever that means, I don't know. Now, then war broke out in the heavens. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. The dragon and his angels fought back. But there was not enough, but he was not strong enough. They lost their place in the heavens. He was thrown into the ocean. That's what I found. They lost their place in the heaven. The great dragon was hurled down. That ancient serpent called the devil or Satan, who leads the whole world astray, he was hurled to the earth and his angels with him. Then I heard a loud voice in heaven saying, "Now have come the salvation and the power and the kingdom of God and the authority of his Messiah, his Son. For the accusers of our brothers and sisters who accuse them before our God day and night has been hurled down." Then it goes on about they triumphed over him by the blood of the Lamb and by the word of their testimony. They did not love their lives so much as to shrink from death. All right, they took death instead of walking away from God. That's a serious commitment. And, anyway, it goes on and on and on, and I have found all of these things, and there is all kinds of things in space from the fight. The dragon was enraged, and the woman went off to wage war against the rest of her offspring, those who keep God's commands and hold fast their testimony about Jesus. And now, let's talk about this now. What we just talked about is the lady and the dragon giving birth out in space to Jesus, or God's son. I don't know whether it was James or Jesus or who it was. But Zeus was hurried off, was going to be eaten, and he was taken away. Yeah, I don't know. I'm just talking. So, the next thing is when you talk about Jesus being born in space or God's Son being born in space. Well, I'm going with that. Son of God, born in space. Now, then Jesus, or Christ, was born into Jesus' body here on earth, Son of Man. Right? I can go with that. Makes perfect sense to me. Then I go back to what did Jesus say about his body coming from space? He said his body fell out of space. My body fed your descendants in the desert. I was the manna. That was me. I was the bread of life. It looks like that was what happened. Because what else? After you have the birth waters flood the earth, then after that, around 3,500 years ago, the Bible started. It was only 3,500 years ago. The Bible started. And at that point, the manna was falling out of space. The red blood was falling out of space, covered the earth with this red dust. The manna fell out of space to feed the Israelites in the desert. The stones fell out of earth to slay all of the people. That was the umbilical cord. It's very, very highly mineralized. The red blood is the birth blood. It's the afterbirth. And the gelatinous, lactogenic infused placenta creates milk and honey. All right? It's dried milk, literally, as it turns into little droplets coming through the space, and they would only eat it when it came through at night, so it wasn't being cooked up by the sun. It was just falling through the atmosphere, drying up into pellets, and then during the day they had to harvest it right away, otherwise it would turn into like honey. It would melt. But when it landed in the water, it turned into milk, and they cleaned it up and made, whatever they did with it. They said there was a lot of it falling. And now all of this stuff was recorded, not by just one or two sources or three or four or five. They were all over the world. They were talking about this stuff. Same catastrophes, same things falling, hydrocarbons, oils, things like this, which is the byproduct of life, the bloody byproduct of life. Go to Velikovsky, look up Worlds in Collision. This was all recorded, and this is only 3,500 years ago. And at that same time, Velikovsky claims that it is recorded in the text that the comet Venus was born of the feared god Jupiter. Now, the red spot on Jupiter is the same size as Venus. So maybe it's not just a big red spot, maybe it's a big red vagina. That's what they said. It was born, and that's what it was. And then all kinds of catastrophes hit the earth. At that point, it was total destruction of the earth. This is about Velikovsky's account of history. And again, Fair Use Act, no money being made here. So here we go.
Mountains were born, and mountains collapsed. Land and sea changed places. Great streams of lava flowed. The sea boiled and evaporated. Such were the scenes of unimaginable violence during the times of global catastrophe.
This is only
in
30.
Worlds in Collision, Velikovsky describes the last two acts of this cosmic drama as recorded by the ancients. At the time of Moses, 34 centuries ago, a giant comet, which later became the planet Venus, nearly collided with the Earth. On two occasions, the Earth passed through the tail of this comet and experienced intense heating and enormous tides, incessant electric discharges, rains of hot stones, and a deluge of fire. Velikovsky claims that some of the oil deposits originated with the hydrocarbons in the comet's tail. This is also the source of manna that sustained the Hebrews after the exodus from Egypt.
All right, just remember what I was talking about the woman giving birth on the moon. All of that stuff, just exactly what they're talking about. Stones from the umbilical cord, extremely mineralized. Then the placenta was the manna, and the hydrocarbons is really red blood and bodily fluids.
Here in the New York Herald Tribune, explosion in science, the artist's conception of what happened when the heavens burst. What happened during the 1500 BC upheaval which we read about in the Bible as the exodus of the Israelites from Egypt, and the phenomena or upheaval that accompanied that. And this is the artist's conception of what happened in Palestine and Mexico and China. Lightning, meteorites being rained down as the comet's head came closer to the earth, followed by floods. Same in Mexico, where water swept over the entire land, great gigantic tides.
Now, just so you understand, Velikovsky's belief or opinion, because I'm sure he can't prove that either, is that the Israelites actually escaped from Egypt during these calamities, and they weren't just allowed to go, apparently. That's what I took from him.
In a final collision with Mars, the comet lost the remnants of its tail and became transformed into the planet Venus. Now Mars traveled on an erratic orbit, and in the year 687 BC it nearly collided with the Earth. There were repeated changes in the Earth's orbit, in the lengths of day, the seasons, and the year. In these catastrophes, entire species of animals were annihilated. Others proliferated from wholesale mutations. Mankind was decimated. Civilizations destroyed. In Velikovsky's world, the heavens are a huge arena where giant comets are born. Planets collide, and huge sparks, thunderbolts, leap between heavenly bodies.
The whole idea of the recentness of cataclysmic events in this part of the universe, the whole idea of catastrophe in the use of science and its being based on an orderly evolution of things, were very shocking ideas to the high priests of the beautiful symmetry of reason and the natural progression of it.
He knocked out a very strong prop for an obsolete form of science, which is what surprised me about the violence of the reaction, since I would have thought that scientists themselves had long ago left this behind, and that is Newtonian science, the science which relies on order, and a very simple kind of order. God, the geometrician, the clockwork universe that just was wound up at some moment in the distant past and now ticks away in its regular fashion. That he attacked, but on the other hand, he was long gone before he said anything about it. His notion that
Eric Larrabee, director of the New York State Council of the Arts. As an editor of Harper's Magazine, he wrote an article on Velikovsky in 1950, just prior to the publication of Worlds in Collision.
One of the surprising things about the pressure that the scientific and scholarly community brought to bear is that it succeeded. The book, the Worlds in Collision, then merely the first of the books, had been on the top of the bestseller list for something like 11 weeks. And nonetheless, the publisher was so mortally wounded, is the only word, by the turning away of salesmen from the doors of professors' studies and all of the implications that went with this, that the book was transferred to another publisher which was willing to take it over, which...
All right, there's no sense in going much further with this. All right, as you see, the end result is they would not allow him to speak about things. And it's still going on today. There was somebody that was fired for finding out that the dinosaurs were here 3,000 years ago or less.
In the case of Velikovsky, there is something high, and the cost of being himself has been very, very great. That is a condition to which I think the young profitably can be exposed. And if I had my way, every young undergraduate student in my college, everyone, whether he's in the humanities or the hard sciences, would be required to examine the Velikovsky case. First, because the subject matter of what the man is standing for is very interesting. Very, very interesting. Secondly, because the subject matter is truly interdisciplinary. It's stretching. But third, because the human embodiment of the expression of the ideas, in a way, is symbolic of the problem the young think they are facing in this kind of a society, and which, in my opinion, they in fact are facing. Not only them, me.
Well, what is this condition?
The condition is the extreme professionalization and rigidification of institutions through which thought is supposed to occur. Extreme to the point where it begins to contaminate the fluidity and looseness, the freedom to think.
Bingo. That has happened on every single side that I can find. If you're so extreme on one side that you can't delve into the possibilities that either support or dismiss things in the Bible or in the religious beliefs that you might have, then you just can't see them. Don't show me, I don't want to see. And if you're in the academic arena, you feel so extremely threatened by the fact that you have been teaching against God and religion and faith and all of that stuff in favor of scientific opinion based on a big bang of dead dust that turned into this, very, very weak. So I can see the vulnerability there, but you have to come around to reality. And it's still going on today. Now, this is back in 1950, 1960. I think this was done in 1960, early 60s, when Velikovsky was trying to be resurrected, and they destroyed him again. So probably most of you have no clue who he is. I suggest strongly you look into him, because I definitely am going to, show that he's been true. He was true to everything. The only thing he didn't understand was all the things are literally alive. The planets were literally alive. When they say it was born, it wasn't just spit out of there by accident. These things are literally living creatures. It was said in the past. I'm going to go with what was said in the past, and if you can come up with any better solutions, good. But this is my feelings, and I have my own feelings. I can do this. You go on your own way if you don't like what I'm saying. But I'm looking for everything, because that's what Jesus said. Keep looking, and when you find out, you're going to be disturbed. You'll be astonished. And then you'll be looking down at people because they have no clue. Like people, like little sheep and little ants walking around that have looking around and saying, I know where I'm going, 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 I don't want to see, I don't want to see. Good. I have no help for that kind of a mentality, and I don't really, it's not for me to help you if you don't want to be helped or you don't want to change what you want. But if you do want to change, that would be advisable from what I'm seeing. So anyway, this is, and this is the problem, is that the teachers that you're supposed to rely on to teach you about reality and about truth and about what makes your life better and what makes society better, that is the problem. That's the problem. It's not you that's the problem. That is the problem. You have been forced into that mold. And it's, look up Peter 2:2-4. All right, it's very, very indicting to the educators, which is all the educators, the religious educators, because they push one thing totally in a very, very authoritative manner that you can't question it. Oh, it's blasphemous. You can't think for yourself. And then on the other side, they won't let you even read things, academics. So I'm stuck in the middle, and I'm going both ways. That's just the way I am. I go both ways. I got to see what I got to see. I got to figure out what I got to figure out, and then nobody's going to stop me. All right, so you do what you're going to want to do, but I think it's interesting, and I would love to have a dialogue with someone that has, some meaningful things to say. That's the key, and I very, 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 very rarely see that. And I get a tremendous amount of animosity, and it's led to me being kind of animosity back. and I don't want to be animositized. So be respectful, that's all. If you don't like it, that's fine. All right, anyway, I keep rambling on, so I'm sure I'm going to keep talking. But anyway, get out of it what you get out of it. And if you can add to what I'm looking for and help me understand some of the earliest texts that speak of the formation of, Gaia and so forth, if there's any other takes on that, I would love to hear. All right, anyway, I'll just wrap it up now. So, God bless you all, and I hope you find something in this, and I'm just asking you, see or don't see. That I cannot help. All right? Peace on earth, goodwill to men. Okay, my good friends, that's it. Like I told you, I would continue to ramble on, and I just want to be sure that I've studied the earth so deeply, and I've studied all the flat earth comments about how far the earth is from the sun, and this and that, and how laser goes over water, and how the dish was formed, and toroid coils, and this and that, and I cannot discount the fact that the earth might be hollow, but I cannot discuss the fact that the earth is flat. And there's no satellites, and there's no everything's computer generated, and there's no rockets, there's no space stations, there's no Mars, there's no comets, there's no asteroids, there's no anything like that. Please don't assault me for my presentations here. That's all I'm asking, and I don't want to be disrespectful, but to tell me that I haven't studied, and I'm naive, and there's so many assaults. It's all my ego that I won't look into this. That's just not going to work. Please don't do it, okay? I love you all, and it's like I say, I really have no horse in your race. You could just, whatever you want to think is fine, but I just don't like to be assaulted all the time. It just gets tiresome. All right? Thank you.